A 13-year-old girl sat outside the ICU every day, singing softly through a glass wall. No one seemed to notice. No one stopped. But someone, hidden down the hallway, was listening and recording. This is the story of Lily Harper, a girl who lost everything but found her voice in the quietest place imaginable. What started as a song for her unconscious mother became something far greater. A ripple of music that would reach strangers, save hearts, and change lives. Stick around till the end. Someone very unexpected stands up during the final performance. It started with a voice, not on a stage, not in front of a crowd, not even in a room meant for music, just a hospital hallway. 3rd floor, ICU wing, where the lights buzz too loud, the walls smell like antiseptic, and the floors are always a little too cold no matter the season. And there, in the far corner near room 312, sat a girl, 13 years old, hoodie too big, jeans worn thin at the knees, shoes unlaced, soles flapping just slightly every time she shifted. Her name was Lily Harper, and she was singing, not loudly, not perfectly, but like someone who didn't care about being heard, only about being felt. She sat facing a large glass window, the kind used in intensive care units. Behind it, barely visible through condensation and wires and machines, lay her mother, unmoving, unconscious, intubated. Every day after school, Lily came here. Same time, same hallway, same folding chair. She'd rest her chin on her knees, pull out her spiral notebook filled with lyrics, most of them scribbled by hand, and she'd sing. Just one song each day, never the same song twice. She didn't know if her mom could hear her, didn't know if voices carried through glass, didn't know if the melodies made it past the noise of heart monitors and ventilators. But she sang anyway, because that's what they used to do, her and her mom. Sing in the kitchen, sing in the car, sing when they had nothing else. And now that she had nothing else, Lily sang for the only thing she still had, hope. What she didn't know was that she wasn't alone. Down the hall, just out of sight, sat a man on a wooden bench with a cane resting between his knees. He looked out of place. Not hospital staff, not a doctor. His jeans were wrinkled, his jacket leather cracked, maybe vintage. He wore old headphones around his neck, like a habit he couldn't break. He didn't cough, didn't move, didn't even blink much. But every afternoon when Lily sat down and began to sing, he reached slowly into his coat pocket, pulled out a small handheld recorder, and pressed record. Click. Not for profit, not for YouTube, just to capture something he hadn't heard in years. A voice with no agenda, no fame, no polish, just a girl singing because it hurt too much not to. Lily never saw him. The nurses didn't seem to notice. And if they did, maybe they figured, like many did in that hallway, that grief takes all kinds of shapes. At the end of her song, Lily always did the same thing. She'd stand, press her palm against the glass, and whisper softly to the woman inside, "I'll see you tomorrow, Mama." Then she'd walk away, leaving behind a hallway full of echoes, and a man still sitting quietly, with tears in his eyes and a recorder still running, like he was afraid the silence might steal her voice if he stopped. Before the hospital, before the machines, before the silence, there was music, not much of it. Not the kind that came from concert halls or record deals, but music in the cracks. In a 2nd-floor apartment that always smelled faintly of cinnamon. In a kitchen with peeling linoleum floors. In a mother's voice as she hummed while folding laundry. And in the laughter of a little girl learning the words to old country songs. That was where Lily Harper grew up. Just her and her mom, Angela. No father, no siblings, no grandparents who stuck around. Just the two of them. One small family held together by cheap rent, secondhand guitars, and a deep love for melodies. Angela had once been a music teacher. She played piano at the local church, sometimes taught private lessons out of their living room for extra cash. She wasn't famous, but to Lily, she was the most talented woman in the world. Lily used to lie on the carpet under the piano bench, watching her mother's fingers move like magic across the keys. She remembered her mom saying, "Your voice is the one thing no one can repossess. They can take the car, the house, the lights, but not that." When Lily was 7, they lost their car. When she was 9, the electricity went out for a month. By 10, the church had downsized, and Angela's piano job went with it. And by 12, they were barely scraping by, Angela waiting tables at a diner by day, teaching music once a week to a few loyal students. Still, somehow, there was always music. Always $1 left for hot cocoa. Always one song left to sing before bed. But then came the accident. A delivery truck, brakes failed, on a rainy Monday afternoon. Angela had been walking home from work. Lily waiting at the window, wondering why her mom was late. The hospital called just after dark. Angela had sustained head trauma, multiple fractures. They weren't sure about brain activity yet, but they were trying. Lily didn't cry, not that night. There wasn't time. She packed a small bag with her toothbrush, her notebook of lyrics, and a sweater that still smelled like her mom. Then she went to stay with Miss Carla, the neighbor across the hall who barely knew her but didn't ask questions. The next morning, Lily sat outside the ICU for the first time. A nurse gently told her children weren't allowed inside. So she found the only spot in the hallway where she could still see through the glass. And she waited. For hours. Watched her mother sleep with machines breathing for her. Waited for some kind of sign, an eye twitch, a finger movement, anything. There was none. That night, as the hospital staff dimmed the hallway lights, Lily did something she hadn't done since the accident. She sang. Softly. Almost too soft to hear. One of her mom's favorite lullabies, half remembered, half whispered. But she sang it anyway. And the next night, she came back and sang again. And the next. No one asked her to. No one told her to stop. Because sometimes grief doesn't scream. It doesn't punch walls or throw chairs. Sometimes it just sits and sings. Lily's voice was thin at first. Quiet. Unsure. But after a week, something shifted. She started bringing her notebook. Choosing songs with intention. Sometimes gospel. Sometimes old jazz standards her mom had taught her. Sometimes ones she'd written herself, full of clumsy rhymes and aching hope. By the second week, the nurses started leaving the hallway doors propped open, just enough for the sound to carry. And that man, the one on the bench near the elevators, he started coming earlier, staying later, bringing a better recorder. Still silent, still unnoticed, but every day without fail, Lily Harper showed up and sang like the only person listening was the one behind the glass. It was a Tuesday when Lily made the decision. A strange day, one of those in-between days in early spring, where the sky can't decide whether to rain or shine, and the wind still bites like winter. She stood outside the hospital entrance with her hoodie pulled over her head, watching the automatic doors open and close like slow, mechanical lungs. She didn't want to go in, not because of fear, but because that morning, something inside her had started to whisper. What if this doesn't help? What if she can't hear you? What if none of this matters? Doubt crept in quietly, like it always does. And Lily, who had been so faithful to her little hallway ritual, suddenly felt silly. A 13-year-old girl, singing through glass to a woman who hadn't opened her eyes in 16 days. What was she really doing? The security guard at the front desk gave her a nod as she passed, like he always did. She managed to smile, even if it didn't reach her eyes. She took the elevator up to the 3rd floor, hugging her lyric notebook to her chest. She'd written something new the night before. Something raw, something that felt like her. But now she wasn't sure she'd have the courage to sing it. At the end of the hallway, she saw her usual spot. Same folding chair. Same crack in the tile beside it. Same soft hum of monitors from behind the frosted glass of room 312. She stood there for a long moment, not sitting, not opening her notebook. And then, as if pushed by something invisible, she placed the notebook gently on the floor, took a deep breath, and sang. This time, she didn't choose one of her mother's old favorites. She didn't go for safe or soft. She sang her own song, the first one she'd ever finished. The lyrics had no rhymes, No perfect melody. It was the sound of a girl who missed the way her mom laughed when she burned pancakes, who missed the smell of shampoo when she got hugged too tight, who missed the voice that used to say, "You're enough." Even on the days she felt invisible, she sang it all. And when the song ended, she didn't say anything. She didn't press her hand to the glass this time. She just sat down, suddenly so tired her legs trembled. That's when she noticed him again. The man at the end of the hallway. Same bench, same leather jacket. But this time, their eyes met. Only for a second. He didn't smile, didn't wave, just nodded. Once, like someone quietly saying, "I heard you." Lily blinked, and when she looked again, he was already gone. She thought maybe she'd imagined it, that the stress, the grief, the exhaustion had played tricks on her. But when she got home that night, there was a message waiting. Not a phone call, not a letter, just a single USB stick tucked into the mailbox at Miss Carla's door. No name, no note, just the stick, wrapped in a folded napkin. She plugged it into her school laptop, and there it was, her voice, echoing in an empty hallway, crisp, real, fragile but fearless. The file was labeled simply, "Hallway Song, March 14th. Lily's hands trembled as she played it again. And again. She couldn't believe it. Someone had been listening. Someone had thought it mattered enough to record. She stared at the screen for a long time, then whispered to no one, "Mom, someone heard me." It was the first time Lily had ever heard her own voice outside her own head. Not muffled through a phone. Not half lost in a gymnasium, but captured. Somehow, just as it had felt when it left her mouth. Small, real, trembling, and true. She listened to the recording over and over that night, sitting cross-legged on Miss Carla's living room rug with headphones far too big for her face. The sound quality was surprisingly good. Too good for a random phone mic. There were no background noises, no hallway chatter, no buzzing fluorescent lights. Just her. Just that song. Floating like breath in a bottle. Lily didn't sleep that night. Not really. She tried. But something about hearing her own voice, something so familiar yet so distant, felt like waking up in a memory she didn't know she'd forgotten. The next day, she returned to the hospital at her usual time. But this time, she wasn't just singing for her mom. She knew, without fully knowing how, that he was listening too. The man in the leather jacket. The one with the tired eyes and the silence like stone. He wasn't there when she arrived, but halfway through her second verse, she heard it. A soft creak. Wooden bench. Same spot. She didn't look. Didn't need to. But her voice wavered just slightly. Not from fear, but something else. Recognition. After she finished, she stood to leave. And for the first time, she didn't go straight to the elevator. She walked slowly toward the bench. He didn't speak when she got closer. He was staring at the floor like it owed him something. A cane rested against his leg. His left hand looked stiff, like it hadn't moved properly in a while. "Was it you?" Lily asked softly. He glanced up, then nodded once. "You recorded me?" Another nod. Lily shifted her weight awkwardly. It was strange, talking to an adult who didn't lead with a smile or small talk. There was no warmth in his posture, no invitation. But there also wasn't any threat, just presence. Like a statue that had decided to breathe again. "My name's Lily," she said, offering it like a secret. He cleared his throat. "Everett." His voice was low, rough, like gravel under snow. "I used to make records," he added after a beat. "Like music." He nodded again, more to himself than to her. "Before the stroke," he said simply, tapping 2 fingers against the side of his head. Lily didn't know what to say. She looked at the floor, then at the wall, then at her own hands. "I didn't think anyone was listening," she said. Everett's mouth twitched, something between a frown and a smile. "They weren't," he said, "but I was." Silence settled between them again. But it wasn't empty. It felt like the kind of silence you only get with people who've seen things break and still came back to look anyway. Finally, he spoke. "You wrote that last one?" Lily nodded. "Yeah. You write others?" Sometimes. You want to try recording one for real? The question hit harder than she expected. Not because it was rude, not because it was sudden, but because for a moment, just one blinking moment, she felt like a real artist, like someone worth recording. She shook her head quickly. No. Thank you, but I'm not ready. He didn't flinch, didn't try to convince her, just nodded like that answer made perfect sense. Okay, he said. Then I'll keep recording from the hallway. When you're ready, you'll tell me. She hesitated. You're really just doing this to listen? Everett looked at her. And this time there was something new in his eyes. Not kindness exactly, but memory. I know what it means, he said. When your voice is the only thing that still works. And with that, he stood slowly, using his cane for balance, and walked away without another word. Lily sat there long after he'd gone, noticing how quiet the hallway felt without her voice in it. And she realized something. He wasn't asking her to be great. He was asking her to be honest. The hospital cafeteria smelled like burnt coffee and plastic cheese. Everything was beige. The chairs, the trays, the tired smiles people wore when they'd been there too long. Lily hated it. But today she went there on purpose. It was the first Saturday of the month, which meant the ICU allowed extended family visits. The halls were too crowded for her to sit near her mother's window. Nurses bustled in and out of rooms. There were grandparents in wheelchairs, teenagers scrolling on phones, a toddler throwing cereal at a vending machine. So Lily took her sandwich and sat at a small table near the window in the cafeteria, notebook open but untouched. She wasn't really writing, just waiting. Sure enough, 10 minutes later, he appeared. Everett, still walking slow, still leaning hard on that cane, still wearing the same leather jacket like it was armor. He didn't ask if he could sit, just lowered himself into the seat across from her like he'd done it 100 times before. Neither of them spoke for a while. Lily picked at the crust of her grilled cheese. Everett drank tea from a paper cup. Black, no sugar. Finally, he said, "You know, the first voice I ever recorded was my sister's." Lily looked up. She was 8, he continued. Had this sweet, bird-like soprano. We recorded her singing Amazing Grace in our garage on an old reel-to-reel. Still have it somewhere. Lily didn't know why he was telling her this, but she didn't stop him. You remind me of her, he said. Same kind of ache in the voice, like it's trying to remember something that hasn't happened yet. Lily blinked. That's a weird way to put it. It's the only way I know how, he shrugged. They fell into another quiet. Then Everett pulled a small, rectangular box from his coat pocket. It was heavier than it looked. Brushed steel, 2 knobs, 1 red button. This, he said, setting it gently on the table, is an old Zoom recorder, studio quality, portable. I cleaned it up last night. Lily stared at it. It's yours if you want it, Everett said. Record whatever you like. Doesn't have to be perfect. Just has to be true. Her first instinct was to say no, to push it away and retreat to the comfort of singing when no one asked her to, when no one was expecting anything. But something about the weight of the recorder, the care Everett had put into it, the way he slid it across the table, not like a gift, but like a handoff, made her pause. I don't know how, she said quietly. Sure you do, he replied. You've already been doing it. She ran her fingers across the cold metal surface. Felt both ancient and brand new. What if I mess it up? You will, he said. And that's how you'll know it's real. She looked at him then, really looked. This man wasn't just some grumpy old producer who wandered hospital halls for fun. He had lost something too. Maybe his sister. Maybe his music. Maybe both. But he hadn't walked away from it. He just started listening in new places. I'll think about it, she said. Good, he nodded, standing with a slow grunt. Just don't think too long. The world needs your voice while it's still bruised. Lily didn't fully understand what that meant, but she wrote it down in the corner of her notebook as soon as he left. The world needs your voice while it's still bruised. That night, for the first time, Lily didn't sing in the hospital hallway. Instead, She waited until she got back to Miss Carla's apartment. She closed the door to the little laundry room where the acoustics were sharp and close. She placed the recorder on top of the washing machine, and she pressed the red button. She didn't sing loudly, didn't sing perfectly, but she sang. A song about waiting, a song about windows, a song about the space between I'm here and I'm okay. And when she played it back, she didn't cringe. She cried, but she didn't cringe. The machines started beeping faster on a Wednesday. Lily had just finished a science quiz when her name was called over the school intercom. She'd never liked the sound of her name in a quiet room. It always felt like trouble. But today, it felt like something worse, like the floor was going to fall out from beneath her. Miss Carla was waiting in the front office, still in her work apron, flour smudged on one sleeve. Her face told Lily everything before she even spoke. There's been a complication. Those words, so cold, so vague, so heavy. They took a rideshare to the hospital. The driver didn't speak. Lily clutched the old Zoom recorder in her hands the whole ride, like it could somehow protect her. When they arrived, the ICU doors were closed, tighter than usual. No window view today, no hallway song. A nurse pulled Carla aside, whispered, nodded. Lily stood near the vending machine, staring at the blinking lights like they might tell her something useful. Then a doctor approached. His name tag read Dr. Benson. He was young, but his eyes were already old. Are you Lily? He asked gently. She nodded. I'm so sorry, he began, and she already knew what came next. No amount of soft voices could blunt the edge. Your mother went into cardiac arrest about an hour ago. We did everything we could. Lily didn't hear the rest. Not really. There was a roaring in her ears, like wind rushing through a tunnel. She felt her fingers go numb, felt Miss Carla's hand on her shoulder, felt nothing. They offered to let her see the body. She said no. She couldn't. Not like that. The ICU hallway was different that day. Too bright, too quiet. She sat down on the same folding chair, just outside room 312, and stared at the glass that now showed only an empty bed, a stripped mattress, and a monitor unplugged. She reached for the recorder out of habit, then stopped. What was the point? She hadn't sung that morning. She hadn't told her mom goodbye. She hadn't known. A few nurses walked by and offered soft nods of sympathy. One of them placed a hand over her heart, like she was holding something back. Everett wasn't there. Maybe that was what broke her the most. She was alone, truly alone. Later that evening, Miss Carla made her tea and tried to coax her into eating something. Lily just sat on the sofa, arms wrapped around her knees. Do you want to talk? Carla asked gently. No, Lily whispered. She didn't open her notebook, didn't press play on the recorder. She slept with the lights on, facing the wall, and for the first time in 18 days, she did not sing. The next morning, there was no hallway song. The bench near the elevators sat empty. No Everett. No recorder in hand. No nod from across the floor. She walked slowly past room 312, already reassigned to a new patient. The glass had been cleaned. No trace of her mother left. No fingerprints. No echoes. Lily pressed her palm to it one last time. Cold met skin. She whispered, barely audible, I'm sorry, Mama. That night, she opened her lyric notebook for the first time in days. But the pages felt hollow. The words meant nothing. She wanted to burn it, tear it, throw it off the roof. But instead, she tucked it back under her pillow and cried herself to sleep with no music playing. Grief has many stages. And Lily, who had been so brave, so consistent, so full of fragile melodies, now sat in the middle of silence, not knowing if she'd ever find her voice again. Grief doesn't leave like a storm. It lingers, like dust on a windowsill, like a song stuck in your throat that you're too afraid to finish. Lily stopped singing. Not just in the hallway, not just at home. She stopped entirely. Days passed, then a week. She went to school, answered questions in class, ate when Miss Carla reminded her, brushed her teeth, got dressed, but something essential in her dimmed, like a radio turned just low enough that even silence could drown it out. The notebook stayed under her pillow, the recorder untouched on the shelf, the piano at school, one she used to sneak into the music room to play, sat cold and unvisited. And Everett didn't come back. No notes, no more recordings, no knock at the cafeteria table. It was like her voice had died, and with it, the last person who truly heard it. Then, 10 days after the funeral, Miss Carla found a small box in the mailbox. No return address, just Lily's name, handwritten in blocky, uneven letters. Inside was a single item, a USB drive, silver and unmarked. Lily stared at it for a long time before plugging it into the school laptop. The folder inside was labeled, "To the girl in the hallway," and within it, not one recording, but 18 tracks, each named by date, each exactly 3 to 5 minutes long. The first one was titled, Day 1, You Are My Sunshine, her very first song. She clicked play, and her voice, thinner back then, shaky and raw, filled the room like it had never left. Every track brought her back to a moment, the sound of the machines behind the glass, the way her fingers curled around the notebook, the little cough she always made before the first verse. He'd captured all of it, not just the sound, the silence in between, the reverence. She played every single one, weeping softly by the time she reached the last. Day 18, the one you wrote, her original song, the one Everett had called Bruised. It was the cleanest recording of them all. Lily pressed both hands over her face as her voice played back. Not because it was beautiful, but because it was undeniably her. And someone else had heard it and said, "This is worth saving." That night she didn't sleep. She wrote instead. 3 pages, front and back. Not lyrics, just thoughts, questions, memories, things she wished she could tell her mom. Then, for the first time since the funeral, she pulled the recorder down from the shelf. The batteries were still good. She sat on the edge of her bed, pressed the red button, and said, "Hi, I don't know who this is for. Maybe it's for you, Mama. Maybe it's for Everett. Or maybe it's just for me." Then she began to speak. Not sing, just speak. She told the story of the hallway, of room 312, of the songs, the glass, the folding chair. She cried, laughed once, too. A brittle little sound that surprised her. She didn't edit, didn't start over. And when it was done, she pressed stop. It wasn't a song, but it was a beginning. The next day, she returned to school with the recorder in her backpack. She passed the music room during lunch, paused, and opened the door. No one was inside, just the old upright piano in the corner. She walked in slowly, sat on the bench, and ran her fingers across the keys. Out of tune, a little dusty, perfect. She didn't sing, but she played. And the moment her fingers found the chords to You Are My Sunshine, she felt it again. Not joy, not even healing, but presence. Like her mom was listening, like maybe so was he. It started with 20 folding chairs in a circle. The community center 2 blocks from Lily's school looked more like an abandoned library than a place for music. Its floors creaked with every step, and the fluorescent lights flickered like they had stage fright. But Everett said it was perfect. Big enough to hold sound, he told her. Small enough to feel it. He hadn't disappeared after all. Just gave her space. Let her grieve in the silence. Let her find her own way back to the music on her own terms. Now he was back. Older, maybe, a little slower, but the same man with the same battered leather jacket and the same quiet gravity. He'd arranged it himself. A small concert, no tickets, no stage, no microphone. Just a gathering for residents at the local assisted living center. People who hadn't been to a concert in years. Some couldn't hear well. Some couldn't walk far. All of them had forgotten what it meant to sit in a room and feel someone sing to you, not at you. And Lily was the only performer. She didn't want to do it at first. It's not a real show, she had said. I'm not ready for something big. Everett had smiled gently. Good. This isn't big. It's just true. and true is where the good stuff lives. So on a gray Saturday afternoon, Lily Harper walked into a room with no spotlight, no stage, and no applause. Just eyes. Some bright, some cloudy, some behind glasses thick as bottle caps, and one pair, at the back of the room, belonging to Everett, watching with the patience of someone who'd been waiting a long time for something to bloom. Lily stood by the piano, not behind it, not hiding. She wore her mother's scarf. She brought her notebook, creased and stained, and the old recorder, now clutched like a friend. The room hushed. Lily looked at the audience, her voice already catching in her throat before she'd sung a note. But she took a breath, remembered the hallway, remembered the sound of her own voice through a layer of glass, and started. You are my sunshine. She didn't pick it because it was safe. She picked it because it hurt, because it was the first song she ever sang in the hospital hallway, and because her mother used to hum it while folding warm laundry, or when Lily scraped her knee, or when the power went out and the only light in the apartment was candlelight and love. Her voice cracked on the second line, but she kept going. And in the back row, a woman wiped her eyes. In the front, a man closed his and whispered the words along. Someone's cane tapped softly in time. By the end, Lily's hands were shaking. She wasn't sure if she could finish the last note, but then she looked up and saw someone she hadn't noticed before. A nurse from the ICU, the same nurse who used to prop open the hallway doors. When Lily sang to the glass, she was sitting quietly near the side wall, hand over her heart, tears slipping down her cheeks without a sound. And suddenly, Lily wasn't afraid anymore. She closed her eyes and finished the song. No applause followed. Not right away, just a stillness. A silence thick with memory and presence and something almost holy. Then slowly one person clapped. Then another. Then another. But Everett didn't. He just nodded, like he had on the very first day, from the far end of a hallway where hope had once whispered a melody through shatterproof glass. After the event, a little girl approached Lily. She was maybe 9, missing a front tooth, holding her grandma's hand. You sound like someone who really means it, the girl said. Lily smiled. I do, she replied. Every word. That night, she recorded the whole show onto the Zoom device. Not for views, not for shares, just for safekeeping. And before bed, she wrote 3 words in the back of her notebook, under a blank page that had once felt too heavy to touch. Still singing, Mama? The email subject line read, Voice from the hallway, track 18? Lily stared at it for a long time. She hadn't expected anything to come from the USB recordings Everett gave her, at least not beyond her own healing. But he had other plans. 2 weeks after the community center performance, Everett uploaded one song. Just one. No artist name, no cover art, no hashtags or fancy tags. Just the title, Voice from the Hallway, track 18. A quiet upload to a private SoundCloud page he used to keep forgotten demos. It should have sat there, buried beneath years of noise. But it didn't. It got shared. First by a friend of Everett's, a former mastering engineer in Seattle, who heard something in the vocals that reminded him of his own daughter. Then by a night shift nurse who had once walked past Lily singing and never forgot it. Then by a stranger who wrote in the comments, I don't know who this is, but I feel like she's singing to me. By the end of the week, the track had over 20,000 plays. Lily didn't find out until Everett called. She hadn't seen him since the concert. His voice over the phone was the same, gruff, to the point, but a little softer this time. You should check your email, he said. Something's happening. She did. And there it was. Requests. Messages. Dozens of them. People asking who she was, where the song came from, how something so fragile could sound so brave. Podcast host wanted to interview her. A small label in Vermont offered a mentorship program. Even a high school choir director in Colorado asked for permission to arrange her song for their winter concert. Lily didn't know what to do with any of it. She wasn't looking to go viral. She didn't want fame. She just wanted her mom to hear her. But somehow, maybe she still had. Late that night, She sat in her room, scrolling through the comments under the track. Some were simple. This helped me sleep. I miss someone too. This made me cry in a good way. One comment stopped her cold. It was from a user called Heartglass312. It read, I was a nurse on the ICU floor. I used to hear you sing outside room 312. I don't know if you knew anyone was listening, but I want you to know something. On the last day your mother was alive, we heard her hum, just for a second. It was faint, but it was real. It was during the end of your song. I thought you should know. Lily's hands trembled. She didn't cry right away. Instead, she pressed play on track 18 and sat very still. For the first time since her mother passed, the music didn't hurt. It wrapped around her like a blanket, not to erase the pain, but to remind her that something beautiful had survived it. The next day, she met Everett at the same bench in the hospital hallway. She sat beside him without speaking for a long while. He finally asked, You ready to record another? She shook her head. Not yet, she said. But I want to do something. He raised an eyebrow. Like what? I want to teach other kids. Kids who've lost someone, how to tell their stories. Through music. Everett didn't smile, but he nodded. And this time he placed his hand over hers. Then that, he said, is your next song. The gymnasium was quiet, except for the hum of folding chairs being scooted across the floor. It was the last night of the fall showcase, an annual event at Lily's middle school where students read poems, sang songs, performed monologues. Usually it was lighthearted, silly, but this year felt different, because this year they ended the program with something new, something called the Hallway Project. It had started as a small idea, a group for students who had lost someone, a parent, a sibling, a grandparent, even a pet, and wanted to turn that grief into song. Lily didn't perform in it. She led it. She coached. She helped kids write lyrics. She sat beside them at the old school piano, gently correcting keys, encouraging breaths, reminding them that it didn't have to be perfect, just honest. The final act of the showcase was a girl named Tessa, 10 years old, tiny frame, trembling hands. She stepped onto the stage holding nothing but a single sheet of paper. No band, no microphone, just her voice. She looked out at the audience, teachers, classmates, parents. Then at Lily. Lily was sitting in the very back row, hood pulled low, Everett beside her, arms crossed, eyes focused. Tessa began to sing. The first verse wobbled. The second found its footing. And by the time she reached the chorus, the entire room had fallen still. Her voice wasn't powerful. It wasn't loud, but it was undeniably real. You could feel the weight of the silence behind every word, the kind that doesn't come from performance, but from presence. When the song ended, no one clapped right away, not because they forgot, but because something sacred had passed through the room, and no one wanted to be the first to break it. Then one person stood. It wasn't a parent, not a teacher, not a classmate. It was a nurse from the hospital. Same white shoes, same soft eyes, the same woman who once watched a 13-year-old girl sing through glass. She stood, hand over her heart, a quiet gesture, but Lily saw it, and her breath caught. Tessa bowed. The room erupted in applause, but Lily stayed seated, her hands curled in her lap, eyes wide and wet. Everett leaned close. You hear that? He asked. She nodded. It's happening again, she whispered. Later that night, after the crowd had left and the lights were dimmed, Lily returned to the empty stage. She sat on the piano bench alone, ran her fingers across the chipped keys, then placed the recorder on top of the piano. She pressed the red button and said, To the next girl who thinks no one hears you, I do. Keep singing through the glass. Someone's always listening. She paused, then smiled. Love, the girl from the hallway. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, every quiet voice matters.